Well, this won't do, will it? Now, in my defense, this is a little bit of an odd one. So this tank started to go really weird, and the algae is like something I haven't seen before. Look at this. It's like this weird cloud algae. You can't really get hold of much of it at all. Never seen anything like it. And the idea was just to leave it here and see if it cleared itself. Some algae do. This stuff hasn't, so it's time to tidy it up a bit. Because at the moment, we've got some really, really nice scapes going along the top part of the fish wall. Next to this monstrosity, we've got the nano tank that I did here, which is all epiphytes basically, and then just a couple of stems chucked in the back. They're not even planted, but they just add a little color pop. Tons of breed in this tank, really nice. Then we've got this really simplistic shrimp breeding tank. And as you can see down here, there's absolutely tons and tons of shrimp. There's constantly new babies being born, and it's very, very productive in terms of, well, reproduction. And it's the same situation with this tank as well. Loads of babies being born. They're all sort of dotted out around all amongst the grasses and things. Just a perfect couple of shrimp setups here for breeding. Kept it really simple, and it seems to have worked a treat. And we've got my awesome Betta in this. Well, here he comes. Turn to the side. Shot is so bright in there, look. Yeah, got my awesome Betta in that one. Then this one's more like a biotope style for the silver tip tetras that we've got in here. It's just a little bit more of a natural look to it. Point is though, this one here is really spoiling the good thing that we've got going on. It's time to do something different there. Oh, and don't worry, there's no fish in that at all. So today's video is sponsored by API and Aquarium. So throughout the video, I'm going to be using a variety of products, which I'll explain in more detail as I use them. We're going to be using Leaf Zone to make sure that our plants stay all lush and healthy. Aqua Essential for making sure that our water is completely safe for the fish. Aqua Essential, it's essential. Quick Start to make sure that there's enough beneficial bacteria for our fish going into new aquariums. AccuClear, root tabs to make sure that our plants grow luscious in a substrate. The Freshwater Master Test Kit to make sure that all our water is safe at all times for our fish. And a range of food from Aquarium to feed our fish as well. So thanks once again to API and Aquarian for sponsoring this video. Back to the build. So the boring part of tank building, cleaning tanks, but it must be done. There's also a black background on this tank which I want to remove. It's been painted on, but it'll scrape off really easy. I only did a thin layer. Now I'm going for a classic nature aquarium style in this tank, which is actually much harder to do on the smaller scale. The good news about doing it this small though, means that it's a lot cheaper. Equipment, the tank itself, even hardscape and substrate system, everything is reduced in price just because of the size of the tank. Obviously that does limit the type of fish that you can put in there, but I like my small fish anyway. And also I love this style of aquarium. It was the first one I really learned to do with a full planted tank. It's one I always quite often come back to. Now the good thing about this algae that was in the tank is it's not caked onto the glass at all, and it comes off really, really easily. So a little bit of elbow grease and it's as good as new. Now I'm not spending too long cleaning the tank. It's not a professional tank cleaning channel. But I'll get it almost there, and then that will have to do. I want to crack on with the build. There we go, looking pretty sweet, nice and clean. Real time, that took about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. I don't know, pretty good going. Now I was gonna build this whole thing out of its final location, but I just think it looks better up here doing it. I mean, we've got some fish either side. It's pretty nice. And of course, we're not gonna be able to grow plants without a substrate system, so let's crack on with that. And the first item I'm gonna put in is this power base that I got from denaleplants.co.uk. I've never heard of this brand. Never used it before, saw it on their site, ordered it, but it's chunky. Now we're gonna have the back of this aquarium banked up. That's because in a classic nature style, there's gonna be a retaining wall through the middle with wood attached to it, and plants all in the background, and then a nice open foreground. This works really well for being able to see your fish, and it sort of separates the front from the back and gives a real huge amount of depth. Now it looks like this stuff is a collection of crushed lava rock and pumice stone, which will be absolutely brilliant for harbouring beneficial bacteria, which we'll take full advantage of. So the next layer going on is just a mixture of recycled material that I've taken out of previous tanks. It's sand, bit of gravel, there's some nutrients in there in the form of aqua soil, and also the odd bit of aquarium compost as well. There's just basically everything in there. Whenever I break down a tank, I just can't chuck anything away. So I've got like buckets full of this stuff, but it always comes in handy. That's the initial substrate layer down, and now I want to bump up the nutrients. And for that, I'm going to need some API root tabs. This one's open because I've used it on another nano, so I've got 5 there. That should be plenty for this tank. What I'm going to do is just break them all out. And then I've got 5, and if I split each one in half, I can get more coverage, and I think 10 overall will work really well. Just mean that I can plant anywhere. The nutrients are still going to be found. Oh, that one broke a bit more. Now, what these tabs are, is just additional iron, potassium, and phosphates. It's just making sure that all the nutrients that are required for the plants to like really thrive are everywhere that's needed. So I'm just dotting them all about. Like I said, I don't know where I'm going to plant yet, so I'm just sort of covering everywhere. More than likely, I will plant everywhere. And then on top of that layer, I've got some Denelay soil here, aqua soil, that we can just lay over the top. Now, many of you that usually watch the channel will know this is a little bit of a different method for me. Usually I just cap everything with a sand, but recently I did something with some aqua soil and it's worked out insane. I set up a full Iwagumi style tank, which is just rocks and then everything else is plants. And I used this aqua soil on top and it has absolutely taken off. Now granted, it has got CO2 running on that tank and quite a bit of it. And I'm not going to be running CO2 on this tank. So I'm treating it as a little bit of experiment to see if I can get really good growth without a ton of algae and also not having to cap everything down as well. Because that is a bit of a pain when you can just chuck in some aqua soil if possible. So now that that's our nutrients taken care of, we can make a start on some hardscape. And the good thing is, because we've got the banked system in place, it means I can put rocks in front of it and then sort of just push them up into it. And it means they haven't got a balance or anything. We can get them exactly where we want. Now I've got a choice of rock here. I've got some, there's lots of black lava rock, but I didn't realise until I've come over it, I've got quite a nice little selection of the smaller elderly stone. Nothing screams nature aquarium more than that look. Just chuck that in, it's just going to look good as it is, any angle. So you can't go wrong with the classic retaining wall style nature aquarium. It is the simplest one to make, but also one of the best looking, I think, as well. And it does mean you get that great separation and contrast between the background plants and then a nice open foreground, which can give you a really clean design. Any shrimp, snails or critters that want to go in the foreground, you can see them really clearly. And also it's almost like the fish know the difference between the background area and the foreground. That means you get to see them a little bit more as well. So what you can see me doing here is using any of the flat edges on the rock to butt up against the side of the aquarium. This means we shut off that area to stop any of the aqua soil sort of migrating forward. We'll use another method as well shortly. To start with, just trying to get the basic shape laid out. There we go, look, nice simple layout and retaining wall. It's not really retaining, let's be honest, it's just nicely placed on top of the soil. That's more than what we need it for. Now we can add some wood to it, some uprights, which if you go for a lot of spindly stuff can work, but you can also do a couple of big chunks like a try or whatever you want really. Just get some wood in and just make it work. But the important thing is though, is to make sure you're taking up a good portion of the height of the aquarium. If you put a little stick in there, it's gonna look weird. Now I've got a piece here, which could work really well. And look at the size of it. You know, compared to the height of the aquarium, just see if I can angle it. Oh, that looks good. So it needs a rock behind it, otherwise it's gonna fall flat like that. But upright and on the rocks, it all looks like it merges in well. And there's tons of room around it for planting. And we can also add another piece in the middle if it needs it. But it's covered in glue points, so I have to chip that off. So I've cleaned up the glue points. I've propped it up with the rock you can see underneath, which isn't the same as the rocks at the front, but you can't really see it, and you definitely won't when the plants are in. But I've got this other piece here, look, and if I add that there, if I can stick it, I think that helps out the composition loads, or maybe even more of an angle. But yeah, get that glued on, and then it won't matter where it joins the wood because we can put plants there anyway. So to fix that, I've used super glue gel, but those glue points have now gone completely solid and we've got a hardscape. Like the way that it comes out of the tank, if you can get some big enough pieces to do that, it just adds another dimension to the whole thing. This looks really, really cool. I've also made sure that I've left plenty of room in the back corner because these tanks use a sponge filter that's fueled by an air line, and obviously we need the space in there for it. I've done exactly the same. On this one next door, you can just see it's tucked around the back there. It works really well. But I now need to go around and choose some points to glue the main piece of wood to these front rocks and to that big one at the back to make sure that it doesn't float up and we fill it up with water.
that is all in place, rock hard. And now we can get our nice decorative sand in this foreground area, and that'll also lock the aquasoil back into the back section, stop it migrating through any gaps as well. And for that, I'm using this quartz-based fine gravel, I guess, or coarse sand. I'm gonna keep it really, really thin at the very foreground, and this does create a really good illusion that you're not looking at a fish tank, you're looking at a TV, basically, fish TV. What I will do is bank it up into the sections where the rocks meet, and that should hopefully stop any of the aquasoil migrating forward. And now we can top up our aquasoil in the back area that runs up to the retaining wall. Don't go too high because it will inevitably spill over the top. But we can add a little bit more depth to it just to make it easier for plants to get right down into and grip. Now it's easier if you just pour it right to the back and then sort of pull it forward or let it flow forward than it is to try and directly pour it onto the specific spot you want. Now you've got options with this kind of setup. You can either leave the foreground nice and clean as it is, which is some people's preferred look, or you could add in some gravels and different size sands, different colors and things for a more textured look. It's just personal preference really, whatever you want. But I think for this one, I'm just gonna keep it clean. I don't do that very often, and it looks really, really fresh.
So I'm really happy with that. Now we can move on to some planting. I like to start with the stuff that I'm gonna stick onto all the hardscape, you know, the rocks and the wood. And then later on, I move on to like the tall background plants, but I fill it up to that point. First of all, we start with the main sort of central focal point. And for that, I'm gonna use ferns. And I've got some really, really nice Bulbitis in this storage tank. And then this one, I've got some awesome little clumps, little clumps of trident fern there. They'll go beautifully. They're really nice and small. And that's going to suit the scale of the tank as well. Now for smaller tanks, I would always go for the trident fern. Like I said, it's much smaller leafed and will not just get absolutely huge and take over everything else in the tank. And especially when you're doing low tech, so no CO2, it tends to stay nice and small and compact. It can get huge with CO2 obviously, but then that's every plant. Anyway, it's very simple to prepare. Just take off the rock wall and you can literally place it on the hardscape. If you can find a gap in it, that makes it a lot easier. If not, you could just glue it to the wood on a rhizo. This doesn't damage the plant at all. The glue is all safe for the fish, it just dries as a hard plastic. So I'm gonna glue the Bulbitis to the background area. So not background, but the furthest part of the hardscape. And that'll sit then just behind the Java fern. I think that will be the best way of looking at it. So it's almost like the two merging together. Bulbitis and any kind of trident fern, they just work so well together. They always look amazing. And there we go, I've just stuck the trident fern just in front of the Bulbitis. Eventually it's all sort of gonna grow together and just look absolutely brilliant. But we've got a big gap now between, you know, this point here. And I found that in a nature aquarium, if you tie in the border to the wood in the background with Anubias, it looks really, really good. Saying that, I've just spotted one more little gap here. It'll look perfect with a bit more Java fern. This is narrow leaf, so another smaller variety. Just in there, yeah, I think that ties it in beautifully. We can get something here, trailing downwards, and on here as well. I've then got this medium-sized piece of Anubias nana, which will sit really nice in this section, I think. Yeah, something like that. I just need to put a rock on it, otherwise it's just gonna float back up. I've actually got these little plant weights, which will work perfectly. Bit of glue around it, and just slot it in. That'll slot in nicely now and sit upright, which is how we want it to sit, because it needs to look like it's been grown towards the light, which now it does. And then we've got some pieces of Anubias petite for either side, just tapering the scale down a bit, you know? And also it's going to be hiding the borderline between the foreground and the background, which always works really well in this style. Crikey, I've been focusing so much on the Anubias, I forgot to hose down my plants. Make sure you're regularly getting everything nice and moist. And then I've also got some little Businesses needle leaf here, which is from Denali Plants UK. And that's gonna add a completely different texture, slightly different color tone, but also it's really, really good for the scale because look at the size of it. Teeny tiny. And in this section here, you can see some of the glue points where the wood is attached to the rock. And I could just use a little bit of this boost to hide it. Next up, I've got some really nice crypts to sit just behind the Anubias and the Businesses.
And I've added in a crypt flamingo in one of the more lighter areas. This is going to go more red. It's from a tank. It's a little bit dark, so this is going to look fantastic in a couple of weeks. Another plant I want to add for a bit more of a glassy feel is Juncus repens. And what I'm trying to do with these plants here is trying to close that line you can see of aquasoil behind the retaining wall, and it just creates a bit more of an illusion of depth. Right, that's looking really, really sweet. Now what I like to do now is fill the whole thing up, and then I like to put my stems in when the water's already there, and I can get them to the right height straight away. Oh, and if you're wondering how I filled that up, I've basically got a reel here which goes to the spouty thing that went inside the tank, and then this water butt is filled up with water from the tap. Now obviously I can't just use water straight from the tap, so that's where API's Aqua Essential comes in. What this basically does is it detoxifies ammonia, nitrite and nitrate at higher levels, like if you've already got a problem in your tank. I don't need it for that this time. I'm using it to remove chlorine, chloramines and heavy metals from the water that's in the tap. So yeah, this is really, really good. You just don't know what's in your water from one day to the next. You know, we're not in control of what comes into the studio, or you aren't at home. And this just makes sure that everything's safe so that when we do par fishing, they'll be golden. So that's filled up pretty good, but as you can see, it's quite hazy. So I'm gonna put the filter in and get a product in that'll make it crystal clear very quickly. Now I've kept the filter completely wet in another tank, so all the beneficial bacteria will still be alive in it, which means it will be working straight away. I'm also putting this in now so I know where not to put some of the stem plants later on, because obviously we need the space for this filter. And the next product I'm going to put in is some AquaClear. This stuff is brilliant. And what AquaClear does is it binds all the microscopic particles together so that they sort of clump, if you like, and they a little bit more than that. Just a tiny little amount of this goes a long, long way. This bottle lasts for ages, but what it does is it binds all the fine particles together so they're slightly larger, and then the filter collects them all, and then you just clean out the filter. In this case, it's the sponge, but if it's like a canister filter, you just take out the filter floss, you change it or clean it. Within about an hour, it will not look like there's any water in that tank at all. There we go, look at that. It was actually 45 minutes. Obviously, smaller water volume, stuff clears quicker, doesn't it? Now we've got a few choices at this point. We can either put more crypts in the background and just let it grow in slowly, but that is a lot of slower growing plants, and I like to use stems just to really help with the startup process. They take up nutrients a lot quicker, and they add a different texture as well. It is more maintenance, but I do think it's a better look. So I've collected up some stem plants from my other tanks. I've got Siamensis 53B here. We've got some pearlweed, 2 clumps of that. Got some Rotala. It's actually Rotala green, but it's been under high lighting, so it's kind of gone pinky, but it will revert back to green as well. You can see some green leaves. We've got some Rotala Willichi, which actually was in the shaded area, so it's not looking its best, but it will become its best. Another little bit of pearlweed as well. So a good selection of stems there. If you were starting this off, you could literally just get 1 pot of each, because they're stems, they grow so fast, you just snip them when they get too long and replant them, and within a month or so, you have a packed out back section. So I absolutely love to use stem plants, despite the fact that they do create extra maintenance. But to be honest, if you've only got a couple of tanks, maybe once a month you're going to do a trim on some stems. They're going to grow back thicker, bushier, and you can replant the trim in, so you're like doubling your plant load every single time. So they're a good investment as well. They also add a sense of maturity to the tank, especially in low-tech tanks where they don't quite grow as densely. And that's just because they haven't got CO2, tons of light. So, they can be a little bit stringy, but I actually quite like that look. Sometimes the high-tech tanks for me can look a little bit artificial, but stems in a low-tech seem to grow how you would expect to see them in the wild. But yeah, just look at that. It adds a whole new sort of dimension to it. The stems at the back and the smaller scale of the leaves kind of make it look like the tank is way, way deeper than it actually is. So I'd say we're almost nearly there. I just want to add a little bit of detail in that foreground area because it's a bit too like blur, blur. I don't know what that means. It just sort of goes from completely clean to, and I just want a little bit of a transition, and for that I'm going to use some moss. So what I've got here is Christmas moss.
It's from Denelay Plants UK. You're gonna focus for me? There we go. And what it is a moss that I think just looks instantly perfect, like straight out the box. Some of the mosses grow a bit more sort of stringy and eventually get great, but this one looks brilliant straight away. Now it is grown in this gloopy sort of jelly. You can see there, it's like a nutrient jelly. So you need to wash that off. And the way I do that is sort of pinch the moss as best I can, put it in the water and just shake it. You can also just sort of push it off any extra bits as well. Don't really want that in the aquarium, do we? And once it's clean, we're left with one nice large big piece. Oh, a bit more gel there. And what we can do is break that up into sort of smaller sections. If I was doing a bigger tank, I'd keep it as one whole one and just order more pots, but that would be too much in one section, I think. So I'm breaking it up into little pieces. And then what we can do is attach these to little pieces of rock. So I've got some little slate pieces there. Then I'm going to take my super glue gel, apply it to the back, not too much because it will squirt through otherwise and just sort of ruin the look, and then just place it on. Then we can take our little pieces and just place them right next to the border there, look. And I think it's just going to tie everything in really nicely. I think the scraggliness sort of the moss just really does sort of tie it all together nicely. And I've also got some nice little bits, look, of hydrocotyl tripartita, and you can just sort of put that anywhere. It doesn't even have to go right into the substrate, just lock it in somewhere. And what that does is it goes throughout all the other plants and sort of interlocks them all, again giving more of a sort of aged look to everything. And in a nature aquarium look, all these small little details and added textures are what really give it that look. Now obviously I'm setting this whole thing up to give it the impression that it's been grown in straight away. Now yours might not look like that, it might take a month or so, but it will definitely get there. So traditionally when you look at like old school nature aquariums, there isn't a lot of colour in them other than like tones of greens and things like that. But that's just personal preference. If you want to put some colour in, you can. And I think I do. I think I want a couple of like red pops, maybe a big one in one section, a small one on the other side to sort of complement it, and the rest be green, and then all the other tones, I just think it'll work really well. So I've got 5 really nice stems of Ludwigia palustris, look, just to pop in this section. If I can release them, there we go. Look at that. Just a little peek of it there, breaking up the green a little bit. And then I'm gonna put another little one down here. So yeah, it's not a huge amount of stems, but it's just the little details, you know, that kind of make a tank. Look at that, that works really well. Now when you buy Ludwigia palustris Super Red, like this one, and these over in this side, it doesn't look as red as this, because when it's grown out of water, it's kind of greeny, but then once it's, you know, been underwater for a while, had a few trim ups, it goes like that. And I think that's just the right amount, look. Subtle little colour pop, breaks it up nicely. It's not going to take away from our fish, which we can now add. But first, there's just a couple of products I want to add into the water column. First of all, we need a beneficial bacteria. Even though the sponge on the filter is fully cycled, all the substrate system has changed, so I want to get that in. And also, we need to give the plant some nutrients in the water column. Their roots won't be established yet. So the beneficial bacteria that I'm adding is Quick Start, and I always use this when I'm starting new tanks. And to be honest, even when I transfer fish from one to the other, because we need to make sure that we've got that beneficial bacteria colonizing in the substrate systems and on whatever filter media you're using as well. So no matter what product you use, always shake it up because stuff settles no matter what company it is or what kind of liquid it is, it just always happens. So for this size tank, I'm gonna need just 1 capful, be absolutely plenty, stick it down in there, and that's all good. And then like I say, the plants need some fertilization. They've obviously got a lot already in the substrate, but the roots are not adapted to that yet. That'll take a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, we can dose the water column with leaf zone and they will pull nutrients from the water column. Again, shake it up, and for this size tank again, we just need 1 capful. Now in terms of dosing, lots of people ask me that. What I tend to do is every time I top the water up, I'll stick in another capful. So that works out roughly every sort of, well, once a week, sort of go around and just top up the water because it'll evaporate in here. And yeah, it'll probably drop 1/2 inch or so. Just top it up with a capful, easy. Right, everything's sorted. Now we can add our fish. And this beautiful guy is who's going in. He doesn't have a name. He's just Red Betta. I suppose he could have a name. Like, what do you reckon he should be called? He's kind of got 2 faces. Like, that's quite cool. He's got 2 faces. You know, like the old Batman. villain. This side, oh, I'm all nice and happy, and then this side, come on, go on. Well, on this side, ah. Here we go then, here comes Two-Face. Don't worry, all the temperatures match from the tank he's just come from. Come out. You're gonna like this home a lot better. It's a question in life at the minute. I don't know why I'm hanging around there. There we go. You get settled. Oh yes, he pops massively against the green as well of the plants, and then you've got the other reds that complement his colour exactly. So yeah, he looks fantastic in there. But I think we could do a little clean-up crew as well. And I don't really want to put any cherry shrimp or anything small like that in with him, because although they can be okay, I don't know what his temperament's like for shrimp, so he might just kill them. Sometimes they're okay, it's very fish dependent. So I'm going to put some larger Amano shrimp in, and then a little collection of ram's horn snails as well. You can see them all dotted around in this tank here. It's breeding them so well. So I've got 3 Amano shrimp. One of them is a big mummer as well, look. Then I've got a little collection of ram's horns as well. There was a couple in there already because they came in on the plants, but it's a good little number of this tank. They'll breed and multiply to a level where there's available food for them, and then they're just numbers will manage themselves. Those Amanos, which are now gone, are definitely big enough so that Two-Face is not going to bother him at all. Well, the good news is it's been 10 minutes and he's still not interested in the Amanos. They did come out the front, but I went to grab the camera and they've already gone to the back again. The snails are steadily waking up for their slumber and they can start moving around. Like I say, see on this bit of plant here, there's still this weird sort of like fungusy thing around the bottom. That's where the nutrient gel was or what have you. Well, the Amanos and the snails will get to work on all of that, meaning that I don't have to touch the plant at all, because I don't particularly want to be playing around with it. It might dislodge it. Nearly. You guys see that? There was a Amano just peeking out. It was almost like he saw me, or maybe saw Two-Face and thought, nah, I'm not chancing it yet. He's coming. Yeah, oh, it's the girl. It's the female right there, trying to edge out. So the cleanup crew that I've placed in this tank is not huge. It's basically there to keep on top of any background levels of algae that arise. So if your tank is having a full-on algae fest, just things aren't going right, it's going to be more the problem that could be fixed with just a couple of Amanos and some snails. But in this instance, as it's like getting algae on it, they will keep on top of things. Oh, look at this, right on cue. The Betta's in the shrimp, having a look. What's your thoughts, Two-Faced? This side, I'm happy. The other side, kill it. Knows it's there. Sort of following. No, seems fine. Absolutely perfect. You can just tell from that, to be honest, that they're going to get on absolutely fine. That female Betta is almost as big as Two-Face, so it's not really a problem. But just by that little interaction then, I can tell they probably would go for cherry shrimp. I was very interested. So given the plant coverage that we've got in this tank, I'm hoping that using the Aquasoil uncapped for the first time in a very long time in a low-tech system, we're not just going to get a bunch of algae forming. Now, I am expecting a small diatom outbreak in the next few weeks or so, as pretty much happens with most tanks, but that is absolutely normal and nothing to worry about. And hopefully the cleanup crew that we've got in here will kind of keep on top of it and keep it minimal, and a little bit of manual work, and it should be brilliant. There is the option as well of adding in some floating plants if you would like, something like Salvinia, Amazon frogbit, or even some mini water lettuce. Red roof floaters will probably look really good as well, but for this one, I quite like in that mirror finish on the surface. What would be quite nice is to add in some food now, make him feel at home. He's pretty chilled, to be honest, but you know, it's always good to give him a bit of food. So we've got the Aquarian tropical and temperate flake food. What's good about this is it can be fed to larger fish and smaller fish because you can just crumble it up. Look at him, he already knows what is coming. He's completely used to this food, so yeah, look. Little grip of it with my fingers, stick it in the top. There you go, that's plenty. Got a little bit of my fingers, I'll put it in with the guppies. Isn't that nice, buddy? Sometimes they can be a little bit weary when they come in a tank with eating, because obviously they've been caught and moved around. Come on then, stop being a little bit stroppy pants. It's like he knows that we're watching him, look. He keeps looking back. There we go. Once he gets a little taste, he'll just keep going. Good boy. It's always good to know that once you put them in a tank, if they're going to be going around the surface like that eating, then they definitely feel comfortable. So yeah, he's going to love it in here. So I hope this video has taught you a thing or two.
and giving you inspiration to give something like this a go yourselves, because nano tanks can be incredibly fun, just as enjoyable as large ones. And I know some people are limited to the size of the tanks they can have. Not everyone can have 8-foot tanks, can they? And in apartments and things, nano tanks like this can be absolutely brilliant. Make sure you subscribe to see future updates and to see how things turn out with a tank, but I can already tell, if I'm honest, this is going to be a fantastic one.